Hello to all CineMaster lovers. Hope you enjoy watching. Let's get started. The series begins with Shahisa riding a train named Shahisa, arriving at a small village. There, she goes to the house of an old man named Dawood, who is very surprised to see her because he doesn't know her. Shahisa asks him to sit and listen to her, because what she is about to tell him is very important. Shahisa introduces herself and tells him that she is his granddaughter, explaining that he abandoned her mother when she needed him the most. She tells him that her mother suffered from severe psychological issues and kept calling out for him for 40 years. But in the end, she died heartbroken. She adds that she doesn't want anything from him, but wanted to let him know that he has a granddaughter. She gives him a bag of seeds, explaining that her mother planted all the seeds in the bag except for one. Then she leaves. As she leaves, Dawood's neighbor, Deba, who lives in the house opposite his, sees her and quickly informs her brother, Marin, that a girl visited Dawood. She tells him that the girl must be the one from the prophecy. Meanwhile, Shahisa arrives at an old rundown hotel in the village and is very upset about its condition, but she has no other choice since the university where she will be working is in the same village. At the same time, we see Deba talking to her siblings and father about the girl who visited Dawood, and it is clear that they are very excited. On the other hand, a man named Saleh, who works for Dawood, arrives at his house. Dawood, still in shock, tells Saleh that his granddaughter visited him today. Meanwhile, Shahisa arrives at the university, introduces herself to the students, and tells them that she is their new psychology lecturer. She begins her lecture, and after finishing, the department head tells her that the students are very impressed with her teaching style. At night, Shahisa returns to the hotel and is surprised to find Dawood waiting for her. He tells her that her mother had tried to contact him many times before and gives her her mother's letters before leaving. Shahisa opens the first letter, in which her mother tells Dawood that her panic attacks had worsened recently and that even psychiatric medications were no longer helping her. She expresses her fear that Shahisa might turn out like her and pleads with Dawood to save her. Shahisa sets the letter aside, takes her sedative, and falls asleep. She has strange nightmares and wakes up startled. She goes down to the reception and asks the staff if there is a nearby lake. She is given directions to a lake in the village and told that no one goes there, so she can swim freely. Within minutes, Shahisa reaches the lake, removes her clothes, and starts swimming. Suddenly, strong winds blow her clothes away, and she is shocked to see Moran sitting by the lake. She asks him what he is doing there, and he tells her that it's his favorite spot where he comes every day. Shahisa asks him to retrieve her clothes, which the wind had blown away. Marin complies, and she gets out of the water and dresses. Marin then asks if she is Dawood's granddaughter. Surprised, Shahisa asks how he knows, and he replies that nothing stays hidden in the village. He tells her that he is happy to meet her. Later, Moran returns home and asks his father if he sent Shahisa to the lake to meet him. His father denies it and swears he had nothing to do with it. Moran then questions his sisters, but they also deny any involvement. Realizing that fate is trying to bring them together, Moran becomes very upset. At night, Shahisa is walking through the village, where a large festival is taking place with all the villagers celebrating. She notices an old woman selling necklaces, who tells her that these necklaces can bring love back into the world. The woman looks at Shahisa and insists that she will need one of the necklaces. Shahisa dismisses it as superstition, saying she only believes in science. The seller tells Shahisa that her faith is weak, to which Shahisa responds that faith is like the scientific concept of the law of attraction. When someone continuously thinks about something, it manifests, but people mistake it for a miracle and attribute it to strong faith. At that moment, the seller begins to hypnotize Shahisa in a strange way, compelling her to buy a necklace and wear it. Meanwhile, Saleh and his wife Dema are at the festival and coincidentally see Shahisa. They approach her, introduce themselves, and tell her that they have worked for Dawood for a long time and consider him like a father. They mention that Dawood was very upset after her visit and warn her not to upset him again. Shahisa mocks their words and walks away. By chance, Shahisa sees Marin and his family at the festival, but ignores them and continues walking. She notices a fire pit ahead and approaches it, staring at the flames. Suddenly, the fire spreads everywhere. Зрение, огонь распространяется повсюду, и Шахиза находит себя окруженной. She screams for help, but no one comes. She begins to suffocate and loses consciousness. At that moment, Marin arrives and rescues her from the fire. The next day, Shahisa wakes up to find herself in her grandfather's house and notices that the necklace is no longer around her neck. She goes downstairs and asks her grandfather how she ended up there. He tells her that he found her sleeping in the room last night and assumed she had come on her own. Shahisa recalls that Marin must have saved her and goes to him to ask why he brought her to her grandfather's house. She also asks if anyone was injured in the fire the previous night, but he told her that there is no fire happened yesterday. Ismail, Maram's father, gathers his children and tells them that hell is a bad luck and they shouldn't tell the truth to Shahisa because she must discover everything on her own. Ismail tells Maran that he must accept his fate because he is the chosen one and tells him that his fate was written for him before he was even born. Maran tells him that by doing so, he is being unfair to Shahisa and is bearing a greater responsibility than her, and that he is not ready to be the reason for her misery. After that, there is a tourist summit near the wealthy area in the village, and suddenly one of the tourists leaves the people and goes to throw himself into the well behind them. After that, the tourists immediately start doing the same and throwing themselves into the well. Chaos occurs in the place, and the security men try to stop them, but they cannot. At that moment, we see a person named Aaron who covers his face and watches the tourist summit as they throw themselves and hears Aaron calling from. A woman tells him that Shahisa appeared and asks him to enter her mind and control her to bring her to them. At that time, we see Shahisa records a report about her mental state after stopping her sedatives, noting that it has been 30 hours since she stopped taking them. She mentions that she is still having strange nightmares about snakes and that reality and imagination have become blurred, making it hard to determine if the fire actually happened. At that moment, there is a knock at the door. Shahisa opens it to find a deaf milk seller. She tells the seller that they don't need milk, but the seller insists she bring a glass. Shahisa complies, and the seller pours milk into the glass and asks her to drink it. As soon as Shahisa drinks it, she feels very strange. Later, Shahisa gets ready to go to the university and asks her grandfather if he knows anything about the fire at the festival, but he doesn't respond. Shahisa becomes upset with his behavior and tells him that people always said he was a kind-hearted man who loved helping others, but he treats her coldly and harshly. She asks him why, but he doesn't answer. Instead, he takes a key to the apartment out of his pocket and gives it to her, showing that she is welcome in his home. Shahisa thanks him, takes the key, and leaves. After that, she sees Maran, so she goes to say hi and tells him that their first meeting wasn't nice because she didn't tell him anything about herself. She tells him that she's from Istanbul and works as a psychology professor at the university and loves the sea like him. Maran tells her that he's happy to know her. After that, Maran goes back to his house and sits with his father and his friend Kamo to find out from them the reason for the fire that happened at the festival, but none of them have an explanation for what happened other than that they are entering difficult and dark days. At that time, Shahisa arrives at the university and asks her doctor if she heard anything about the fire that happened in the village. The doctor tells her that she saw the news on the internet. Then the doctor introduces her to a teaching assistant named Jihan and tells her that he will help him with her master's thesis. He takes Jihan on a tour of the university, and they get to know the system, and he tells her about the tourist group accident that happened 2 days ago. So, Shahisa is surprised by what she hears and feels that something is not normal happening in the village. At that time, we see Dawood planting the seed that his memorization brought him, and by chance he sees Maran and asks him if he is the one who brought his memorization to the house on the day of the festival, and Maran answers in the negative. Meanwhile, Shahisa is in a popular market in the village and asks the vendors if they know anything about the woman who sent her the chain, but none of them know her. Shahisa notices that Arm is watching her, so she is very shocked by the sight of him and approaches him, but suddenly he disappears. She loves to search for him everywhere, but she can't find him, and suddenly she feels that there is a strange person walking behind her. But when she looks, she doesn't find anyone. She doesn't find anyone, so she tries to hide to catch him, and as soon as he passes by her, but by mistake, she catches a small child, and the child's father comes and quarrels with her and asks her to stay away from his son. And Shahisa notices that all the villagers are looking at her in a strange way, so she wants a taxi to go, but no taxi agrees to stop for her. So she calls Shahisa and tries to go back home walking, and in the middle of the way, she finds Maran standing in front of her in his car and asks if she needs help, but Shahisa doesn't answer him. So Maran wakes up and walks in his car, but suddenly the wheel broke, so she goes with him and changes the wheel and tells him about the behavior of the villagers towards her. So Maran suggests to her that she goes back to Istanbul if she is not comfortable being here, so she gets tired of his words. She feels that he does not want her to be among them. At night, Saleh goes out to water the seed that David planted, but it explodes horribly. After a while, Shahisa gathers with her grandfather, Salih, and his wife to have dinner. Saleh tells them about the seed that grew so quickly. Shahisa Sa is surprised because it's the seed she brought. She feels that something strange is happening and goes to sit alone by the lake, feeling depressed. After a while, she returns home and sits alone, while Diba watches her and tells her brother that Shahisa Sa is deeply depressed about her mother's death. Diba has a supernatural ability to sense people's emotions. Miran decides to visit Shahisa Sa and apologizes for his mourning remarks, telling her he feels her pain over her mother's death, as they both experience the same tragedy. He explains that his mother died when he was born. Suddenly it starts to rain, and Shahisa feels happy again. Miran feels reassured that she's better and leaves. Later, Miran is seen showering when suddenly a snake-like face appears on his arm. Meanwhile, Shahisa Saw is asleep when a horned figure appears before her with her necklace. Suddenly, the figure disappears, and a snake crawls over Shahisa's body. She wakes up terrified and heads to the lake to calm herself. At the same time, Dawood enters his granddaughter's room and finds footprints on the floor. He suspects Miran had been there, confronts him, and orders him to stay away from his granddaughter, warning him not to sneak into her room again. Miran is confused and doesn't understand. Shahisa goes to university and meets Jahan, who invites her to lunch at a kebab restaurant. She agrees and rides on his motorcycle. At the same time, Miran arrives at the university with a gift for Shahisa Sa, but changes his mind when he sees her with Jahan. Later, Miran calls his older sister Harya angrily, telling her that Jahan is trying to get close to Shahisa. Harya is happy because her brother is starting to feel jealous. At the restaurant, Shahisa Sa and Jahan are having lunch. Shahisa Sa goes to the restroom, where she hears a snake's sound. She opens all the restroom doors but finds nothing, gets scared, and quickly leaves. After lunch, Jahan takes her home on his motorcycle, and Miran sees them, feeling very jealous. When Shahisa Sa enters the house, she's surprised to find her grandfather locking the door with a padlock. She asks him why he's doing it. He tells her he doesn't want strangers in his house and mentions his fight with Miran earlier, warning him not to enter the house again. Shahisa argues with her grandfather, telling him Miran didn't enter the house. She goes to Miran to apologize for her grandfather's behavior, but Miran coldly responds, saying he's not upset. Shahisa asks him why he's acting strangely with her. He told her that he was behaving normally. She got fed up with Shahisa and left. Night came, and we saw Shahisa and her grandfather watching TV together. She told him that she was thinking of inviting Miran to the house, so Dawood got angry at her words and left and went out of the house. She followed him and made up. The next day, we saw Shahisa explaining a lecture to the students, and we saw that Jihan and Deba were present in the lecture. The topic of the lecture was about knowing the human self. So one of the students asked her if she had discovered herself, so Shahisa told him that she hadn't been able to yet. At that time, we see Vicky, Miran's third sister, in a herbal shop, and suddenly she gets a strange feeling that Shahisa is in danger. So she calls Deepa to warn her, but she doesn't hear the mobile, so she keeps circulating a voice message and tells her that Shahisa is in great danger and asks her to keep an eye on her. And at that time, Shahisa sees Arun from behind the window, so she goes out after him to know who this person is. And then Deepa hears the voice message, so she chases Shahisa. And in the meantime, we see Shahisa chasing Arun until Karun enters an abandoned building, so she starts asking him to stop. So Karun appears to her to stop. So Karun appears to her in a suspicious way, and then he enters the room in the building, so she goes after him. And suddenly, a very huge snake appears, and the door of the room closes. So Shahisa keeps screaming and tries to knock on the door for anyone to save her, and within seconds, Jihan reaches her and opens it. She opens the door, and then Shahisa tells Jihan that she saw a huge snake. Jihan tells her that this happens all the time because snakes hide in buildings because of the heat. Shahisa smiles and sees a strange-looking man in the building. He surprises Jihan with her question and tells her that he didn't see anything. Shahisa starts walking, and she is upset. Jihan follows her, and Deba tries to stop him, but Jihan prevents her and tells her that he will protect Shahisa as long as she is in university. He asks her not to interfere in his life again instead of hurting her. On the other hand, we see Ismail sitting with a spiritual person, and he tells him that Maram doesn't believe in prophecies, and if Maram doesn't carry out his mission and fulfill the prophecy, he tells him that he has been trying to preserve their lineage for years, but if a problem occurs between humans and the snake lineage, then a violent battle will break out and thousands of people will die. The innocent people tell him that the only solution to prevent this battle is for Moran, who is a descendant of snakes, to use his love for Shahisa in order to achieve peace through him. Because if a snake and a human fall in love with each other, the soul of a woman named Shahmaran will return at that time. Maran and Shahmaran are the ones who will achieve balance on Earth, and it is beneficial from here that Maran is half human and half snake. At this time, we see Shahisa disgusting her mother's answers. She philosophizes what she and her mother are suffering from. She crawls into her grandfather's drawer and finds many tranquilizers. Night comes and David returns home, and Bella waits for him for a while, with her on his tranquilizers. She confronts him with his truth and tells him that he suffers from hallucinations and nightmares and walks around in his sleep like her and her mother. She continues to blame him because he abandoned her mother, even though he knew she was sick. David tells her angrily that she does not know the whole truth, so that she can judge him after all. After a while, Maran stands in front of Shahisa's window and finds Bella drunk. Shahisa tells him that she has a strange feeling and feels that they have known each other for a long time. She tells him that she discovered today that her family is all crazy and advises him to stay away from her. After that, Shahisa enters her room and keeps dancing until she falls on the floor. Maran is surprised that he enters her room and carries her and puts her on the bed. We see Maram's sisters watching from their house, and they are very happy that he is close to her. The next day, Shahisa wakes up and finds Maran sleeping in her room. She starts asking if anything happened between them yesterday. Bella assures Maran that nothing happened and asks about the reason that made her drink yesterday. Shahisa tells him that strange events have started to happen to her recently, and she can no longer find an explanation for them. She tells him that she gets drunk to escape from reality. Then Shahisa goes down to sit with her grandfather and tells him that she wants to decorate her room and asks him to help her. Dawood agrees and starts helping her in cleaning the room. She tells him Shahisa about the first time she started seeing hallucinations when she was 5 years old. She mentions visiting many doctors, but none could help her, leading her to become addicted to psychiatric medications. Later, Shahisa visits Myran at his house and is surprised to find him working on making perfumes. She picks up a perfume bottle and finds its scent wonderful. Miran tells her he made this perfume especially for her. Shahisa decides to test his knowledge of essential oils and asks him to close his eyes. She lets him smell the oils and asks him to identify them. Miran answers all her questions correctly. Shahisa then moves closer to Miran, letting him smell her and asking him to guess the components of her perfume. They go for a walk in the forest. Suddenly, Miran hears a strange sound and follows it to its source, finding a man named Mirash. Miran chases him and catches him, asking what he wants from Shahisa. Mirash tells him that the era of humans is over and that snakes must rule the earth. That night, Miran tells his father and friend Lakmo about what happened. He explains that he captured Mirash to interrogate him and uncover the snakes' plans to prevent the war they want to wage against humans. Meanwhile, Dawood hears a strange sound on his property. He grabs his rifle to investigate and finds Jahan. Shahisa comes out, hearing the noise, swing, and tells her grandfather that Jahan is her university colleague. She asks Jahan why he's there. Jahan tells her he was worried because she didn't attend university that day and came to check on her. Jahan then leaves. He encounters Lakmo, who turns out to be his father. Lakmo keeps reprimanding him and asks him to stay away from Shahisa so he doesn't harm himself. At that moment, we see Shahisa recording a report about her psychological state, saying she felt safe for the first time today. Meanwhile, Moran is interrogating Mirash and asks him what exactly he wants. Mirash tells him that the snake people are tired of the life of poverty they're living because they've spent their entire lives in darkness. They can't wait for the prophecy to come true anymore. He says that surely the day will come when the snake people will grow weary and resort to dark powers to save their lineage and impose their control over the world. Moran reflects on being their supreme leader and is supposed to help them. Moran tells him he understands but asks them not to approach his person or harm her until he figures out what to do. On the other hand, the person wakes up in the forest surrounded by a snake. Suddenly, the snake approaches her and bites her, causing her to faint. At that moment, Arm appears before her and approaches her, but Moran appears at the same second and rescues her. Marin begins to extract the snake venom from her body, then carries her and takes her home. Meanwhile, we see Dawood sleepwalking, suddenly waking up to find himself standing before the tree he planted. He remembers his daughter and breaks down crying. The next day, Shahisa wakes up to find Marin sitting in front of her. She asks him what happened, and he tells her that a snake bit her while she was at the lake, and he heard her scream by chance. He brought her home to treat her and reassures her that his father extracted the venom from her body. She thanks him and returns home, recording herself saying that Moran lied to her today. The following day, we see the person sitting alone, recalling the events of yesterday, such as hearing about the snakes and seeing Marin's sisters lowering her into a tub to remove the venom from her body. She starts suspecting that there's a dangerous secret behind this family and decides to visit them. She arrives at Moran's family home with a cake. She sits with the family and notices their discomfort with her presence. She tries to lighten the mood and asks Ismail if she needs to go to the hospital. Ismail examines her and asks if she feels any pain. She tells him she's fine. Ismail reassures her that she's been treated well and doesn't need to go to the hospital. He then asks how long she plans to stay in the village. She tells them she'll stay until the harvest and then return to Istanbul. She notices drawings on the table and accidentally bumps into them, discovering that all the drawings are about snakes. Naturally, Marin's family fears she might have discovered something, but she appears normal and excuses herself to leave. However, this stirs her feelings, and she tells her family that she remembered what happened yesterday. Marin reassures them not to worry because he plans to talk to her today to figure out what happened. At this moment, symptoms of a rash appear on Moran's body, causing him great anxiety. Meanwhile, the person arrives at the university, where the lecture topic is about the legend of Shahmaran, the Queen of Snakes. She asks the students to prepare reports and submit them tomorrow. At that moment, Marin arrives at the university and coincidentally meets Jihan. He tells Jihan he needs his help to protect the person. Jihan tells him he's already keeping an eye on her and informs him about the lecture topic. He warns him that she seems to be sensing something. Shortly after, the person is surprised by Moran's visit and asks him why he's here. He tells her he wants to spend the day with her. Moran takes her to a secluded house in the forest and tells her that his family has been carrying a vendetta for a long time, even before his father was born. He explains that his father married another woman after his mother's death and had Biki and Diba with her. She asks him about Malik and the women who lowered her into the tub yesterday. Marin becomes nervous because she remembered. He tells her it's an old tradition practiced by the villagers, believing it heals those bitten by snakes. Marin continues, saying he traveled all his life until he had to finish something. But when he returned to the village, he discovered the vendetta wasn't over yet. The person starts sharing her story, saying her father abandoned them long ago without reason. That's why, when she grew up, she decided to specialize in psychology to analyze her father's personality and understand his hatred toward them. However, she still couldn't find answers. Suddenly, Moran approaches her romantically but starts feeling intense pain. He leaves her and looks in the mirror, finding the rash has spread across his body. At that moment, Marin senses strange movements in the area, realizing the snake people are nearby. He quickly calls Jihan, informing him that Karun is with them and asking him to hold him off until he takes Shahisa and escapes. Within minutes, Jihan confronts Karun, preventing him from harming the person. Karun approaches him, awakening the evil part within him and commanding him to help bring Shahisa to him. On the way, Marin tells Shahisa there are many things about him she doesn't know and asks her if she would choose to escape with him or stay here. She becomes anxious and tells him she can't decide right now. Later, Marin returns home, exhausted. His sisters support him and take him inside the house, removing his clothes to find the rash has spread across his entire body. Meanwhile, the person enters her home and finds her grandfather asleep on the couch. She handcuffs his hand to prevent him from sleepwalking and harming himself. The next day, we see the milk vendor heading to her animal barn, shocked to find all her animals dead. She walks through the forest and discovers that all the animals in the neighboring barn are dead too. This news reaches Ismail, who tells Lakmo that the death of the cows is a bad omen, signaling the battle between humans and the snake lineage. At this moment, Moran is in severe pain as his skin peels like a snake. At the same time, Dawood wakes up from sleep and calls his granddaughter to remove the clamps for him. She quickly goes to him and removes the clamps for him and apologizes to him for being late for him and the family. The second time, Ismail tells the puncher that his son will not be able to do so. He takes care of Shahisa while he is sick and asks him to let Jihan be the one to watch over her and protect her during this period. Then, Jihan arrives at the university and suggests to Shahisa that they go and sit together in a cafe. She agrees, and Jihan takes her to a popular area in the village. She notices that all the residents are looking at her in a scary way, but she doesn't put the matter into her head and starts telling Jihan about the legend of Shahmaran, who sacrificed herself for the person she loves. In the face of him, he will go do something and come back again. At that moment, the people of the village gather around Shahisa, and she notices that one of them is holding a mask and is tired. Of course, Shahisa gets scared and tired and doesn't know how to act. But Jihan reaches her at the last second and takes her and walks quickly. There is an internal conflict inside Jihan because he loves Shahisa and wants to protect her, but at the same time, he is bewitched. Mentally, the evil force controls him, and then Shahisa reaches Moran's house and calls him and hears the sound of his mobile ringing inside. She is very surprised that he does not answer her, and she keeps calling him in a hoarse voice, and Diba hears him and feels pain. Ismail gathers his daughters and tells them that they must make a plan so that Shas does not notice Maran's disappearance. Night comes, and Dawood tells his party about the day he took his daughter. He tells her that on that day, he packed his bag and left the house, but he was surprised that his daughter came down after him and held his hand and asked him not to leave. He asked her to come back home again and promised her that he would come back to her again, but unfortunately, he did not come back to her again. Shahisa gets very upset about the story and starts crying. She goes and sits alone in the room and sends a message to Moran, telling him that she agrees to run away with him. At the same time, Saleh tells Dawood that his wife is sick. She has some time left, so Dawood asks her to take her to the doctor because there is probably good news. The next day at the university, Shahisa sends a message to Moran, asking him to reassure her about him because she is very worried. Jahan comes to sit with her and offers her to go out together, but Shahisa refuses. At that moment, Diba sees Shahisa's message on her brother's mobile. so she becomes very worried and does not know how to act. Then, Jahan takes advantage of Shahisa's preoccupation and opens her mobile and listens to the recordings she made of herself, in which she says that she wants to escape from the village with Moran. Of course, Jahan is very jealous of her. At night, Shahisa reaches Moran's house and asks his sisters about his whereabouts. He tells her that he is traveling, but Shahisa tells them that she does not believe her because she heard the sound of his mobile. So he tells her that she must have heard wrong. Shahisa starts to walk, upset, and at the same time Saleh goes to tell David that his wife is pregnant, and David is very happy for him, and they hug. At this time, Shahisa is swimming alone in the lake. Azrania Shahisa is swimming alone in the lake, and suddenly she feels a strange movement and begins to think, this is an important trip. Shahisa goes and rides in the car, and suddenly Jahan puts the car on the other side, so she starts to frighten Shahisa and asks him to stop the car, but he does not listen to her. Suddenly, Moran appears in front of them, and Jahan grows up and stops. The car and Moran comes to Jihan, and suddenly they are both kidnapped in front of Shahisa. Shahisa is terrified and keeps calling for them. Within a few minutes, Marin returns to her, and Shahisa smiles. Marin tells her that he will not be able to answer her questions now, but he asks her to trust him and offers her that they run away together. Then Sue gets angry at him and tells him that she will not go with him anywhere, but why she justifies his strange behavior to her. And at that moment, she receives a call from Saleh, telling her that her grandfather ran away from home. Shahisa quickly goes with Miran to the house, and they ask Saleh what happened. He tells them that he has been acting strangely since the morning, and suddenly he disappeared from the house. Maran tells them that he will go look for him and bring him back home. He reaches Maran to Dawood and finds him standing on the edge of the mountain trying to kill himself, but Maran stops him and takes him with him. They return home, and Ismail begins to examine him and tells Shahisa that her grandfather has symptoms of Alzheimer's and asks her to take him to the hospital tomorrow to do tests and examinations. Maran tries to reconcile with Shahisa and tells her that he was going through a difficult period, but he cannot tell her anything now. Shahisa tells him that she will not be able to continue with him as long as he hides secrets from her. After that, Maran returns home. He tells Lakhmu that Jahan sided with the snakes and tried to hurt Shahisa, but he reassures him that he didn't hurt them, so he gets angry with him and tells him that humans are the reason for the snakes' anger, and asks him not to punish his son for his actions because the snakes are angry and want to take their rights, and asks him not to get close to his son because he will punish him after he punished his son and removed the snake's fangs from his lap. And Jahan is very angry because his father sided with the humans. On the other hand, we see the doctor of his department, Shahisa, in the library, and suddenly a snake appears from among the books, bites her, and then enters her body, and Basie flies to her. The next day at the university, we see Deep looking for the department doctor, so she gives Talat a trip to the ancient castle with all the students and the appointed one. In the castle, we see Shez trying to call Jihan to check on him, but he doesn't answer her, and suddenly she hears a voice calling her from the well. The one in front of her is the same well that the tourist group threw themselves into, so she moved closer to get the chain and was about to fall, but Deepa appeared at the right time and moved before she fell. At the same time, Maran goes to ask Jihan about the reason for his hatred for him, so Jihan tells him that he does not deserve to be the chosen one because he did not believe in the prophecies of Shahisa love. So she orders Maran to get out of his way and gives him his fangs, and he walks. On the other hand, Shahisa is sitting with the doctor of the department, and Deepa sees him, so she loves that there is something wrong with the doctor. After a while, Shahisa returns home and asks her grandfather to get ready so they can go to the hospital, but her grandfather refuses. So Shahisa argues with him because she is afraid for him, but he does not listen to her. She calls his grandfather for the first time, so he kisses Dawood because it is the first time she calls him his grandfather. After that, we go to Maran's family's house and see them all gathered, and with them is the milk seller who is witch, and she hears and speaks and tells them that all the strange phenomena that started happening since the day of the festival have only one explanation, which is that the prophecy will be fulfilled soon. And in order to make sure of this, they must hold a feast and gather the villagers who are laughing at the snakes. She asks them to invite the doctor of the department because she suspects that a snake has taken over her mind. On the other hand, we see Dawood sitting with his grandchildren, and he asks her if she trusts Maram. She tells him that Shahisa does not trust anyone, so Dawood tells her that Maram is ready to sacrifice his life for her and asks her to trust him. Night comes, and we see that Ismail is holding a big feast in which all the snake people are present. Meanwhile, Shahisa arrives with her grandfather and philosophizes in a frightening way. After that, Saleh and his wife Damia arrive at the feast, and she says to him Damia feels severe pain in Damia feels severe pain in her stomach, even though she is 3 months pregnant. After a while, children arrive at the party. Shahisa goes and greets him, telling him that she missed him a lot. She apologized to John for what he did to her last time. He tells her that he was drunk and not in his right mind. After a while, Shahisa leaves the feast and walks alone in the forest. Marin sees her and goes after her. At that time, the department doctor arrives at the feast in Beirut before her. He tells her that he wants to talk to her alone. He takes Ismail to the pen, and suddenly he attacks her and makes his daughters suffocate him. He tells Maran that he is the only one who can remove the snake from her body. Here, Beitla says that the snake breed has taken over the department doctor in order to make her get close to Shahisa. At that time, Shahisa tells Maram that she is sure of the truth of her feelings towards him today, and she discovered that she loves him and is ready to sacrifice everything for them to be together. And Maran realizes that Shahisa's skin started to turn into snake skin, and at the same time, Dawood feels pain in his heart. So he leaves the feast and walks, and suddenly he faints. And after a while, Shahisa returns to the feast and starts looking for her grandfather, but she does not find him. And on the other hand, Maran reaches the doctor of the department, and the snake comes out of her body and is killed, and at the same time, Damia feels severe pain in her stomach and says that she is bleeding. So Saleh quickly goes to look for Ismail to save her. And at that time, Diba feels that something is not normal happening to Damia. So she tells her the milk seller that Damia is pregnant with a snake. And this is the last sign that appears before the prophecy comes true. And at the same time, we see Shahisa looking for her grandfather until she finds him unconscious on the ground, so Badal screams and calls anyone to Maram helps her to some extent. Maram hears her voice and goes to her and carries Dawood and moves him to the house. At that moment, Maram shows his fangs in front of Shahisa and bites her grandfather. He is able to treat him with snake venom. When Shahisa sees this scene, she trembles and runs out of the house, but Maram goes after her and asks her to listen to him because he will confess everything to her. Marin tells her that thousands of years ago there was a woman named Shahmaran. She was the queen of snakes and lived underground with her offspring. One day, she fell in love with a human named Jamsab. He decided to leave his life on the surface of the earth and go down to live with her underground. But after a while, he got tired and wanted to return to the surface again. Shahmaran agreed that he go out, but on one condition, that he does not tell people about her location. Jamsab agreed to her condition. But Lilith, Shahmaran's sister, knew that he was a liar because she did not trust humans. She tried to warn her sister about him, but her sister trusted him. After a while, he discovered that Jamsabi knew that the sultan of the country was sick and his only cure was Shahmaran's tail. So he decided to tell the minister where she was so he could bring her and help them, but on the condition that he wouldn't harm her. However, the minister betrayed his promise and arrested her. Of course, Lilith's sister was upset and wanted to take revenge on Jamsab, but Shahmaran prevented her and locked her in the well in the castle. After that, Shahmaran asked Jamsabi to kill her, cut her into 3 pieces, take her head, boil it, and give it to the sultan because her head is the cure, and to boil her trunk and give it to the minister because it contains poison. After that, Jamsab boils her tail and drinks it himself so that he can take wisdom and power from her. Jamsab carried out her will, but he later regretted killing her and lived with this guilt all his life. Of course, Lilith was very upset for her sister and decided that she would take revenge on all humans because the snakes are the ones who control the world. But the only thing that would prevent Lilith from carrying out her revenge is fulfilling the prophecy. The condition of the prophecy states that the chosen one from the people of the serpents, Marin, must marry a human girl. However, this human girl must be from the people of Jamsab and live underground. At that time, humans and serpents will reconcile and live in peace together. Marin shocks her by revealing that Dawood is actually Jamsab himself, and that she is the girl from the people of Jamsab. He tells her that Jamsab tried to commit suicide multiple times because of what he had done, but he kept being reborn in the form of different humans. He would always hide his true identity and never had children, until one day he fathered Shahisa's mother. After that, he remembered his full truth, which led him to abandon his daughter and flee. Of course, Shahisa is devastated upon. Zrania Shahisa is devastated upon hearing all of this and runs off into the forest. Meanwhile, we see Ismail helping Damia give birth. Within minutes, she gives birth to a serpent and then dies. At the same moment, Mirash arrives at Dawood's place to take revenge for what he did to Shahmaran. Dawood grabs the knife he has and ends his own life. On the other side, Aaron appears in front of Shahisa to kill her before the prophecy can be fulfilled. It is revealed here that Aaron is a servant of Late. But suddenly, Shahisa gains superpowers and is able to stop him from harming her. It becomes clear that Shahisa has accepted her true identity and also decided to fulfill the prophecy, which is why she gained superpowers. Moments later, Maran arrives at Shahisa's place, and Shahisa tells him that she has decided to marry him and live with him underground. The first season of the series ends here. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, Make sure to subscribe for more awesome content.